Sarah jolted awake, heart pounding. A strange dream clung to her, cold and unsettling. She sat up in bed, the darkness of her room heavy and unfamiliar. What was it about the dream? It slipped away like sand, leaving only a residue of fear. She got out of bed, needing to shake off the lingering unease. The house was silent, the air thick and oppressive. Sarah walked to the window, the moonlight casting long shadows across the floor. Everything felt off, distorted. She tried to recall the dream, to grasp the feeling that clung to her like cobwebs. There had been a house, dark and imposing, and whispers soft and sinister slithering through the halls. The memory sent a shiver down her spine. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to rationalize the fear. It was just a dream, but the feeling persisted, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. Something wasn't right. She tried to go back to sleep, but the dream lingered, its edges blurring into her waking thoughts. The whispers returned, faint at first, then growing louder, swirling around her. They spoke her name, their voices a chorus of shadows. Panic began to rise in her chest. She tossed and turned, trying to escape the sound, but it followed her, relentless and insidious. The room seemed to shrink around her, the darkness closing in. Sarah sat up again, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She turned on the bedside lamp, but the light did nothing to dispel the sense of dread that had settled over her. The whispers continued, a constant murmur just beyond her hearing. She got out of bed again, needing to move to escape the confines of her room. The house was still silent, but the air hummed with an unseen energy. The dream was bleeding into reality, twisting her perception. The hallway outside her room seemed to stretch endlessly, the shadows deeper than before. The air grew colder, the silence amplifying every creak and groan of the old house. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She walked slowly, her hand trailing along the wall for balance. The wallpaper felt strange beneath her fingers, rough and uneven. As she continued down the hallway, the house seemed to shift around her, the walls closing in. Panic tightened its grip on her chest. The whispers grew louder, their voices clearer now, taunting her, threatening to consume her. Sarah picked up her pace, her heart pounding against her ribs. She reached the end of the hallway and stopped, her breath catching in her throat. The stairs leading to the first floor had vanished, replaced by a blank wall. She was trapped. Fear clawed at her throat, choking her. She ran her hands over the wall, searching for a seam, a doorknob, anything that would lead her out of this nightmare. But there was nothing, just smooth, cold wall. The whispers were all around her now, their voices a cacophony of madness. They spoke of her deepest fears, of her darkest secrets, stripping away her sanity piece by piece. Sarah sank to the floor, her back against the wall, her hands covering her ears. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers had burrowed their way into her mind, echoing through her thoughts. She was trapped, both physically and mentally, in this terrifying dreamscape. Time lost all meaning, minutes stretched into hours, or perhaps it was the other way around. Sarah huddled on the floor, her body trembling, her mind teetering on the edge of madness. The nightmare had become her reality. Section 5. A Glimmer of Hope? Then, just as suddenly as it started, the whispering stopped. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. Sarah slowly lifted her head, her eyes darting around the hallway. The air was still thick with dread, but the oppressive presence had receded. She cautiously got to her feet, her legs shaky beneath her. The hallway remained unchanged, the walls still closing in, but the absence of the whispers gave her a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this. She started walking again, her hand trailing along the wall, her senses on high alert. The silence was unnerving, but it was preferable to the torment of the whispers. Sarah clung to the hope that she would find a way out, that this was all just a bad dream. As she walked, she noticed a faint light emanating from under a door at the end of the hallway. A glimmer of hope flickered within her. Could this be the way out? With renewed determination, she stumbled towards the light. Section 6. Back to the nightmare. Reaching the door, Sarah hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the doorknob. What awaited her on the other side? Another dead end? Or something even more terrifying? Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped through. The room was plunged into darkness, the air thick with the scent of decay. Sarah fumbled for a light switch, her heart pounding in her chest. As the light flickered on, she gasped in horror. The room was identical to her own bedroom, down to the last detail. The same furniture, the same floral wallpaper, the same framed photographs on the nightstand. But something was terribly wrong. The room was in ruins, the furniture overturned, the wallpaper ripped from the walls, the photographs shattered on the floor. Blood stained the sheets of her bed, a dark, gruesome reminder of the nightmare she couldn't escape. Section 7. The walls close in. The whispers returned, louder than before, their voices laced with a triumphant glee. They swirled around her, mocking her, taunting her with her inability to escape their clutches. Sarah sank to her knees, her body racked with sobs. She had been so close, so sure that she had found a way out. But it was just another cruel trick, another layer of the nightmare designed to break her spirit. The walls of the room seemed to press in on her, suffocating her. She was trapped, caught in an endless loop of terror with no hope of escape. The nightmare had become her reality, and she was powerless to stop it. The whispers filled her mind, their voices a chorus of despair. Sarah curled into a ball on the floor, her arms wrapped around her knees, her eyes squeezed shut. She couldn't fight anymore. The nightmare had won. Section 8. No escape. Time lost all meaning. Days bled into nights, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurring beyond recognition. Sarah existed in a state of perpetual terror, haunted by the whispers, tormented by the shifting landscape of her own mind. She tried to remember a time before the nightmare, a time when the world made sense, when she felt safe and secure. But the memories were fading, replaced by the overwhelming darkness that surrounded her. The house had become her prison, its walls a constant reminder of her captivity. She wandered from room to room, each one a reflection of her fractured psyche, each one offering a new horror to endure. The whispers were her constant companions, their voices a constant reminder of her helplessness. They whispered of her deepest fears, of her darkest secrets, amplifying her terror, driving her further into madness. Section 9. Accepting the nightmare. Exhaustion settled over her, a heavy cloak of despair. She could fight no longer. The whispers were a part of her now, their voices woven into the fabric of her being. She surrendered to the nightmare, accepting it as her new reality. The line between sanity and madness blurred. She embraced the whispers, finding a strange comfort in their familiarity. They were her jailers, but they were also her only companions in this desolate landscape. The house, once a source of terror, became her sanctuary, a twisted reflection of her own shattered mind. She wandered its halls, lost in a labyrinth of her own making, her laughter echoing through the empty rooms. The nightmare had become her world, and she its willing captive. She had given up hope of escape, finding a strange solace in her surrender. The whispers were her reality now, their voices her only solace. Section 10. Forever trapped? Then a sound pierced through the fog of her madness, a gentle knocking at the door. Sarah froze, her head tilted, listening intently. The knocking came again, insistent, demanding her attention. Hope, long dormant, stirred within her. Could it be real? Could someone be on the other side, offering her a way out of this nightmare? She cautiously made her way to the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the doorknob. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and woke up. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The room was bathed in the soft light of dawn, the familiar surroundings a welcome sight. Relief washed over her. It had been a nightmare, just a horrible, vivid nightmare. She was safe in her own bed, in her own home. But as she looked down at her hands, she noticed something strange. The wallpaper pattern from the nightmare, the one with the grotesque, grinning faces, was imprinted on her skin. Her blood ran cold. Was she truly awake? Or was she still trapped in the nightmare with no escape in sight?